What's going on, y'all? It's Athletes Culture again, coming at you with another video. So recently, NBA star Carmelo Anthony has been making headlines in which he's been discussing why he's not been in the NBA, and people have been discussing this as well. Well, the real reason why Carmelo Anthony is not in the NBA is a culmination of a number of reasons. Because for somebody, of his magnitude, being the third overall pick back in 2003, a 10-time NBA All-Star, two-time All-NBA second-team selection, four-time All-NBA third-team, an NBA scoring champion, a three-time Olympic gold medalist. It's crazy that somebody of this magnitude is not in the NBA anymore, especially when still having the skill set to make it in the NBA. Just like Carmelo Anthony said, it's bigger than basketball, and it's a culmination of a number of things. Number one, the media's false narratives. Now, the media has been portraying this false narrative that Carmelo Anthony is not a winner, but that is, I tell you, the complete opposite of what this guy really is. I mean, remember, back as a freshman, this is the time where players could have been one and done. He elected to go to college. He led Syracuse to a national title as a freshman. Syracuse won a national title back in 2003. He later goes on that same year in 2003 to get drafted by the Denver Nuggets. Mind you, the year prior, the Denver Nuggets were 17-65. They hadn't won anything. All right, they were terrible. For them to even be in the lottery, they were terrible. Carmelo Anthony comes over to the Denver Nuggets and they make the playoffs that year. Believe it or not, the stats are there. The Denver Nuggets make the playoffs. I mean, they finished 2003-2004 with a 43-39 record. They came in as an 8th seed. However you want to put it, they made the playoffs. And just to put this into context, for Carmelo Anthony's first 4 seasons in the NBA, the Nuggets had always been in the playoffs. Something LeBron James cannot even say, because LeBron James didn't even make it into the playoffs until his 3rd season. His 3rd season in the league. But each year from the 03-04 season, 04-05, 05-06, 06-07, Carmelo Anthony in his first 4 seasons had that Denver Nuggets in the playoffs. In the playoffs. So it's crazy to say that this guy is a loser when in fact he has had success at every level that he has played at. Now, did he win any championships? The answer is no. But this guy has been a great part of a winning environment when surrounded with the right pieces. Players like Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh, these are players in his class that I mentioned, and they did not have to go through the suffering that he went through because they have always been privy to be in an organization in which they surrounded them with the right players to help them win. So this media pumps this false narrative, but it's not true. And the reason why they do this, it all stems back to the Knicks and Nuggets brawl back in 06-07 season. I mean, we all remember that. This was 2 years after the Malice in the Palace, and the NBA has been trying to eradicate that image of that time. And when he went ahead and punched, I think Marty Collins, and that brawl took off, I mean, a player with the profile of Carmelo Anthony doing that, this is one of the league stars. The NBA tries to market their stars. And for him to do this just set the league back. So the media took a hold of that and, just ran with it. And you could even see the public reactions from this. You had coaches like Steve Kerr, media personality like Rick Bucher. They all spoke down upon it, saying that it was a bad image, bad look for the league. That Carmelo Anthony's career is basically done. Yes, they have said that at that time, that his career was done because of it. I mean, it's crazy stuff. So the media just took this stuff and just ran with it. And Carmelo Anthony suffered the harshest punishment that time. He was suspended for 15 games. So the media, for the minute on since that brawl, always had it out for Carmelo Anthony. Even the Denver media, too. They're to blame. Carmelo Anthony had been in issues in which, friends of his were caught with marijuana. They make a big deal about it. So he wasn't in the good graces of the media at the time. His image, with the cornrows and everything, Carmelo Anthony being, a huge representative of the hip hop culture. This just wasn't the image the NBA was trying to have anymore. And that was just something that was just always going to be against Carmelo Anthony. especially with an incident like this happening. It just took things to a whole nother level. But nonetheless, Carmelo Anthony had always been a winner. He had always shown success on and off the court. Look at the season, that season 06-07. I mean, they were so much against him that he almost missed out on the All-Star team. He was not selected as an All-Star. He was a reserve. He wasn't even selected as a reserve. He was actually a replacement, a replacement. David Stern had to choose him because Yao Ming and Carlos Boozer got hurt, so he chose Carmelo Anthony and Josh Howard. They came in as replacements. And that's how he got onto his first All-Star team, quite honestly. And this season, he averaged his highest career total of 28.9 points per game, 6 rebounds, 3.8 assists. I mean, Carmelo Anthony was the man. So you can just tell with somebody putting up this type of numbers and he's not selected as a reserve at least. I mean, definitely the media and the coaches around the league definitely had it out. So that's point one. Point number two is this. Carmelo Anthony lacking foresight. Carmelo Anthony, as much of a great player we can say about him signing that extension back in 2006, to stay on with the Denver Nuggets is what cost him. I mean, that 5-year, $80 million, remember, if he had signed a 3-year deal rather than that 5-year, he would have been a free agent with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade in that summer of 2010. Instead, he signs a 5-year because he was after the money. Even Carmelo Anthony said it himself. It was a no-brainer for him. When all the rumors were out, they were saying, I was signing this type of deal or that type of deal. My family called me and said, look, are you crazy? Growing up, we don't have much. This is what he said. So the money was always an issue for Carmelo Anthony, and that's what cost him lacking the foresight, him going after the money. Because if he had signed a lesser deal, understanding how the business of basketball works, that he can actually make more money as time goes on, rather than taking the right now, having patience, he would have been in a much better situation. He would have had more options to actually change his image from this street thug or this, not a winner that the media is trying to promote. He could have actually changed that narrative, because in 2010, he could have either signed with the Miami Heat with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, or he could have went on to the Chicago Bulls when they had Derrick Rose, who ended up being an MVP for the 2010-2011 season, Joakim Noah. He would have slotted into that. And more than likely, they would have ended up in the NBA Finals with that roster. So his lack of foresight, coupled with the media after him, this all cost Carmelo Anthony deeply, big time. Like I said, the media was out for him. He now went after the money. He was just setting himself up bad. And quite honestly, look at what happened that same summer. Boozer goes on with the Bulls. He signed the 5-year deal with the Bulls. That money that would have been Carmelo Anthony's. So it's crazy that they would go that way. And then even looking at the contract details, from somewhere 75 to 80 million, that would have been the money Carmelo Anthony would have signed on, and he would have ended up winning an NBA title. The Bulls had tried different avenues. They tried to go after LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, but Carmelo would have been their guy if he never signed that extension back in 2006. Finally, on top of that, why Carmelo Anthony's not in the league anymore is this. One of the third and probably most important real reasons is he burned a lot of bridges. After his tenure in Denver, he goes on to the Knicks. And I must say this, in Knicks, he found success there too. Even when people said he wasn't a winner, when they got rid of Mike D'Antoni, and they brought in Mike Woodson, and players like Jason Kidd came around, because the first year they suffered a first round exit because of Chauncey Billups getting hurt, and then they lost to the Boston Celtics, which were actually quite better. But as soon as they got a better point guard like Jason Kidd coming around back in the 2013 season, they were a 54-win team. Carmelo Anthony finished third in MVP voting.
Carmelo was the MVP of the league. That 50-point game at Miami, the next night he scored 40 points. They beat the Heat 3 times. And this is a team, Kevin, that is not a great team. You've got a lot of old guys out there. Jason Kidd, Marcus Camby. They tried to throw Rasheed Wallace out there. They signed Kenyon Martin off the street. I mean, you've got 35-year-old rookie Pablo Prigioni. You've got a lot of older guys on this team. Carmelo is the only legitimate all-star in this team, especially, and he's the leader. And I just think he elevated his game. He elevated his team to new heights.
Gary, this is Stephen A. Smith, my man. I want to ask you.
Won scoring title that year in 2013. And yet, him going up against Carmelo Anthony, saying, and then Mike D'Antoni saying that he quit the Knicks because of Carmelo Anthony's ultimatum, saying that, it's between me or him. All this stuff just burnt bridges, and it just came back to bite him in the ass because, later on, Carmelo Anthony does what? He tries to join Houston. And when Daryl Morey wanted to cut him, do you think Mike D'Antoni was actually going to, fight to keep Carmelo Anthony? The answer is no. Not at all. Not at all. So a lot of this is like, there's three main reasons, the media, his lack of foresight going for the money, that culminated with him burning bridges because after Mike Woodson got at Knicks, they brought in Hornacek, him and Hornacek didn't get along. They got into it. It was just a whole bunch of problems. And then just to make matters worse, he signs a 5-year extension for $130 million. This is Melo again going after the money. This is around the time Phil Jackson didn't even want him there. And I must say this, Knicks owners, Carmelo Anthony should have seen it because when the Knicks owner, James Dolan, got rid of Glenn Grunwald, who was actually, the architect about keeping, building the team around players that were compatible with Carmelo Anthony. Once they got rid of him, Carmelo Anthony should have known, hey, I'm not signing an extension. Time is now. I should go to the Clippers, or at least a year down the line, demand a trade so I can go play alongside with Chris Paul. All this stuff, was just a huge culmination of everything. Because when Glenn Grunwald left and Steve Mills came in, Steve Mills was the same guy that ushered in Isaiah Thomas. So Knicks fans, think about that. Think about that for a second. James Dolan is bringing around all the yes men, Steve Mills, Isaiah Thomas, all the people that were his friends. So once Grunwald left, Steve Mills came in, and Steve Mills later on brought in Phil Jackson. These were the people that were against Carmelo Anthony, who were actually planning his demise. So when all the people that were on his side, like when Mike Woodson got fired and Glenn Grunwald left, rather than be thirsty for the money, Carmelo Anthony should have thought about his future. He should have definitely not signed that extension. As a free agent in the summer of 2014, he should have signed with either the Bulls or signed with the Lakers. Because the Lakers play that half-court style with Brian Scott at the time that actually would have suited him. And the Lakers actually, other than the Knicks, would have offered him more money. But, hey, I guess leaving another $30 to $40 million was just too much for Carmelo Anthony, and that's what ended up biting him in the ass. So, coupled with all the burnt bridges, his thirst for the money, him, the media not being on his side, I mean, this was just a huge culmination of a lot of things, and these are the real reasons why Carmelo Anthony is no longer in the NBA. Because I guarantee you, back in 2014, if he does not sign that extension with the Knicks for $130 million, he goes somewhere with like the Lakers, or the Bulls, or even Houston, which still had eyes for him. Carmelo Anthony would have been in a much better situation, or even agreeing to go to the Nets, because you remember there was a time where the Nets actually wanted to acquire Carmelo Anthony. Even the Pistons, too, wanted to get Carmelo Anthony. They offered, I think, the Nets offered Richard Jefferson and a couple of other players to get Carmelo there. If he had just went there, that would have done him right. The only thing I would say Carmelo Anthony did good when it came to money is when he declined that 3-year, $65 million extension back in 2007. That's what actually, he did good by declining that, and then later found his way on to greener pastures as time went on. But still, the media being against him, his lack of foresight, his thirst of money and burning bridges, this is all what cost Carmelo Anthony. This is why he's not in the league. Nobody's really ready to fight for him. And and as time goes on, him being 35, things are getting grimmer. I don't necessarily see Carmelo Anthony on an NBA team to start the season. But I think as time goes on, with, the truth being put out there, things could be different. Hey, he may even start a season, but I think it'll definitely take a repair, a huge overhaul. But I want to hear what y'all have to say. Like, comment, and subscribe down below. I'm out.